Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Changing a Child's Story, a community conversation with CASA. I'm Tim Gadzinski, Manitowoc Public Library, joined here with six incredible panelists from CASA of East Central Wisconsin. Correct? Did I get that correct? I know that in the past I have messed that up, but East Central Wisconsin is the way to go. Welcome, everyone. I just want to say off the top that if you have questions or comments at any point during this presentation, just type them into your comments bar on either Facebook or YouTube, and they will come through to me, and we will get to them at the end of the presentation this evening. But yes, type them in and they'll come through to me. You can participate live with the panelists. One other thing I wanted to bring up is that if you do ask questions or make comments, please don't get specific about anyone who is in the CASA program. Keep it as general as possible while getting your question in, but don't. I just urge you to not get too specific in anything that you bring up. So, without further ado, I'm going to take myself out of the picture. I will stay on microphone to ask your questions and to also ask some submitted questions that we have for the panel. But let me just get rid of myself. And at this point, I would like to call on everyone on the panel to introduce themselves. And why don't we get started with Jen?
Hi, I'm Jen Fodden. I've been with CASA since 2015.
Anything you'd like anyone to know about you? You know, beyond how long you've been with CASA?
Um, that put me on the spot pretty quickly. I'm in love with Wisconsin. I moved here 10 years ago and fell in love with Manitowoc, and here I am.
Awesome. Who'd like to go next?
I will go next.
Who was that?
I will. This is Julie.
I see you now, Julie. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Hi, I'm Julie. I am the director of the CASA program. So I have been the director now for about 10 years. I too, like Jen, am not a Wisconsinite, but I've been here for 20 years. So now I think I can say that I am. And we're excited to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, you're welcome. Who's next?
I can go next.
All right.
So, hi, I'm Nancy Henderson. I taught third grade in Two Rivers Public Schools for 35 years. And after I retired last fall, I got trained as a CASA. So I've been part of the program for a little over 1 year now.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thanks.
Natasha, would you care to go next?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Natasha Khan. I think I was on the last training session that CASA had, or one of the most recent ones, so I haven't actually had any experience, so I'm kind of going to speak on why I became an advocate and on some of the training, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for coming. And how about Lisa next?
Hi, I'm Lisa Stolp. I've been with CASA since it began 15 years ago. My husband and I own 4 restaurants in Manitowoc County. I'm a grandma to 3. I'm on the board at Lakeshore Foster Family and Friends.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, Darian.
Hi, I'm Darian Kutarabic. I'm the advocate coordinator here at CASA. I am from Wisconsin. I'm actually from Manitowoc. I was born and raised here, so I love this community and I love working for CASA and being able to give back to the children in our community. So thank you, Tim, and the Manitowoc Public Library for having all of us today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you all for joining us this evening. So why don't we get started and get into the meat of at least the beginning of the discussion. And Darian, you sent me a PowerPoint that we're going to get into. Let me just bring that up and share it with the people following along. and I will then turn it directly over to you, and just let me know when you want me to advance the slides.
Thank you. So the title of today's discussion is Changing a Child's Story, a Conversation with CASA. You can go to the next slide, Tim. So we're going to start with the PowerPoint, and we'll go into speaking with the panelists. But the agenda today, I'm going to talk about objectives, the crisis, what the CASA solution is, the need, and how you can help everyday citizens. And then, like I said, we'll go on to questions and discussion. So our objectives are to create sustaining partnerships with local businesses and organizations, to utilize the human and financial resources of our community, and then ensure a CASA volunteer and a safe, permanent home for every child that's in the court system due to abuse or neglect. Our mission, CASA v. Central Wisconsin's mission is that we provide and support specially trained court-appointed special advocates to act solely in the best interest of children who have experienced abuse or neglect, who are in need of court protection, to ensure they have a safe and permanent home and the opportunity to thrive. So each year, nearly 800,000 children are confirmed victims of abuse or neglect in the U.S., and the threat grows during times of economic downturn. So if you think about the last year and a half that we have had, those were troubling times for all of us, difficult times, difficult things to wade through, especially for young people. And especially because a lot of the young people in our town have parents who have never gone through an economic downturn like that. And it really reflects in our numbers locally as well. Next, thank you. At any one time, more than 500,000 kids are in foster care because they cannot live safely with their families. We have only seen an increase in out-of-home care, unfortunately, in our county. And I'll talk a little bit more on numbers later. Next, Tim. In an overburdened social welfare system, abused and neglected children often slip through the cracks. On average, a foster kid will remain in the system for 3 years. So all of the kiddos that we serve are under what's called a CHIPS order, Child in Need of Protection and Services. And I would say typically the expiration date of those orders lasts about a year. Unfortunately, on average, like this statistic says, it's usually more than that. Our hope is to have that shorter, but right now we do have an overburdened social welfare system. The numbers for all the departments have increased. And so CASA kind of plays an extra role as the extra set of eyes and ears to help and make sure that child is safe and is somewhere where they're getting their needs met. Next slide. On average, a child is moved at least 3 times while in foster care, and often more. And that it is something that's difficult for kids. I mean, they're already removed from their homes, and that's something new already. And if they're moved at least 3 times in 3 years that they're in the foster care system, that itself can be very confusing and hard to navigate, especially for a young person. Next slide. Thank you. Additionally, foster kids typically attend 9 different schools by age 18. You can imagine how that must impact their studies and their knowledge. I do know in our county specifically that I can speak to, there are a lot of kiddos that are grades behind in terms of their reading level. 8th graders at 3rd grade reading levels. And so that just adds to the crisis. Next. A recent study found children who suffer abuse are 50% more likely to engage in many types of crime. And they more likely to be unemployed, homeless, incarcerated. drop out of school, not finish high school, things like that. Next slide. These circumstances can have a devastating impact on the lives of children, and it makes them difficult for them to cope and adapt, to perform well in school, or to establish safe, healthy, and consistent relationships with peers and positive adult role models. In Manitowoc County, right now, there are over 100 children placed in out-of-home care. I think it's over 150 because they have been found in need of protection and services by the court because of abuse and neglect from a parent. And these victims are eligible to receive advocacy services that a CASA volunteer can provide. Next. So the CASA solution, we say that it can be different. All kids are capable of success, no exceptions. That's something that we believe here at CASA. We believe that despite whatever they go through, I hear a lot in my training here, and I say this a lot, but every child is one adult away from a success story. So a CASA volunteer in a safe permanent home for every child in the court system because of abuse or neglect is our solution, and CASA volunteers can help make that happen so that they don't have to experience unemployment or homelessness or any of those things I mentioned before. They can have a successful career, safe home, be what people would consider a productive member of society and graduate high school, maybe go on to college. Whatever it is that's in their future that they're capable of, a consistent, reliable, supportive adult can help to make that happen. Next. CASA is the only community-based organization whose primary focus is the most vulnerable children, the victims of abuse and neglect under the protection of the court. There is not another organization like us in Manitowoc County. We are written into Wisconsin statute, so we are able to provide a service in our community that no one else in our community is providing. So like I said, CASA volunteers, they do what no one else does. They act as the independent eyes and ears of the court, an extra set of eyes and ears, conduct weekly face-to-face visits with the child, sometimes bi-weekly, depending on the case. Like we know that every child is different and has different needs. We respond to that and how that works for that child and that family. Make objective observations about the child's safety and well-being, identify unmet needs of the child and families, and speak solely for the best interests of the child. So we are more than mentors. I think that is something, at least that I hear in the community, that there's some confusion on. So we're more than that. We provide advocacy. We're assigned by judges, so we are ordered by a judge in court to advocate for one child or more, their sibling group. We submit, or our volunteers submit court reports. They influence court decisions regarding the child's well-being by providing information and recommendations. They pass rigorous background checks and initial screening. Obviously, because we are privy to a lot of very sensitive information, and we are meeting with children. So we do have a rigorous background check process, screening process. And then each volunteer completes 30 hours of initial training and then 12 hours of continuing education every year. CASA volunteers are backed by judges. Here in Manitowoc, we have such amazing support from the three circuit court judges that we have. This quote right here is from one of the judges. So I'll read it to you. These children need more than food, clothing, and shelter. They need a level of compassion and love that no mere court order has been able to provide. Enter CASA. These dedicated volunteers quickly become the most reliable adult in many of these children's lives. To have a person who demonstrably cares about these children is in and of itself worth the effort, but the benefits do not end there. to have an additional resource able to provide a different kind of information to the court from exclusively child-centered viewpoints, supplements the information of the overburdened social workers, and are able to provide and provides a different perspective. And that was from our current Judge Dietz in Branch 2 here in Manitowoc. CASA Volunteers are a proven solution. 95% of kids with a CASA Volunteer stay out of long-term foster care. 90% don't re-enter the child welfare system. And kids with CASA Volunteers are more likely to be adopted. Children and families are more likely to receive needed services when a CASA is involved. And examples of this are listed. So counseling, food share, job and or housing assistance, medical and dental care, early childhood budgeting support. And all of that happens because of the work that the CASA Volunteer does by communicating with the families, foster family and biological family, the child, and there's teachers. So CASA Volunteers are able to really hone in on what the needs are for the kids and make everyone, social workers, judges, aware of those needs. Community impact. Our highly trained volunteers, they are serving the most vulnerable children in our community. CASA also impacts each child's siblings, parents, grandparents, extended families, teachers, social workers, neighbors, etc., for exponential community impact. We really believe in collaboration. I know there is the common saying, it takes a village, and it really does. We truly believe that. So I told you before that I am the advocate coordinator here. So I technically am a supervisor, and with a full-time employee like me, I can supervise 30 volunteers and ultimately 75 children. We have over 100 children on our waiting list right now. So we are lucky to have the chance to grow so that we can serve more kids. I won't spend too much time talking about that. I know that our lovely executive director is going to a little bit later. So how can you be the difference? I know that maybe volunteering to be an advocate is not for everyone, but we have different options to do that. So one of them is to become a CASA volunteer. You can do that as a couple with your significant other or a sibling or family member, whoever that person may be. That's also an option. You can build community visibility and support, whether that be by word of mouth or social media. Become a member of CASA's board. You can recruit CASA volunteers. If you know someone that you think would be a great CASA volunteer, let them know that we're here and that we have a need. And then you can also provide financial sustainability through donations. So I think then we're going to move on to questions and discussion. I think our executive director is going to touch a little bit on updates for our current CASA program. So thank you for watching the presentation.
All right, let me remove for the moment our PowerPoint and make this a bit more people-centric again. And let me bring Julie into the forefront. Now, Julie, what is the current state of the agency? What can you tell us about the agency now?
Yeah, so let me kind of start with a little bit of the history piece. So we started serving kids in Manitowoc County in 2006, and we were a program under Lakeshore CAP. And I started, like I said, 10 years ago as the director and the only staff member of the program, which really limited us to the amount of advocates we could have and therefore the amount of kids that we could serve. So in 2019, we left Lakeshore CAP and formed our own entity and became CASA of East Central Wisconsin. So if listeners are hearing the term and our name, CASA of East Central Wisconsin, We're still the same program in Manitowoc County that we've been since day one. The reason that we became our own entity was to enable us to grow and serve more kids. So we left, formed our own entity 2019, and then Darian joined us in September 2020. So it's been a little bit over a year since Darian joined us as the advocate coordinator. And with adding staff really does enable us to be able to bring on more advocates, serve more kids. So kind of going back to that slide that Darian showed, under national CASA standards, which we are a member of, and we're also a member of Wisconsin CASA, every advocate coordinator can supervise those 30 advocates, which in turn can provide service to 75 children. So adding Darian meant that we could expand, include more advocates. And now we're able to add on our second advocate coordinator for Manitowoc County, which means that we can bring on an additional 30 advocates serving more kids. So like Darian said, unfortunately, we have a huge waiting list here in Manitowoc County. We have over 100 kids on our waiting list. I think that 6 years ago, we had maybe 59 kids under that CHIPS order, and that has just unfortunately grown every year and really exploded this year during the pandemic. And I'm not sure that we see that slowing down, unfortunately. So the judges are very much supportive of CASA. They really see the benefit. Therefore, they're ordering CASA almost on every child that's under that CHIPS order. So the need is great. And we are able now to serve those kids by bringing on more staff, more advocates, serving more kids. Additionally, we are regionalizing in Sheboygan. That also was another reason why we formed our own entity, so that we could start a program in Sheboygan County as well. So we currently are also looking for an advocate coordinator for Sheboygan. So that's something that your listeners will be able to follow us on and get more information in start of next year of 2022. But that's where we are now. We're very excited. A little bit intimidated by the growth, but I think we're ready for the challenge, and definitely has been a success so far with adding Darian and our great advocates, such as those that are on the panel with us tonight.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to bring everyone back into the picture more vividly. And like you said, we are fortunate to have 4 advocates on our panel this evening. So why don't we get into some of the questions? Just want to remind anyone following along that if you have any questions, just put them in the comment bar, and we will get to them after the questions that we already have in place. So first question that I'm going to ask, and this is open to everyone on the panel, and even this can be absolutely anyone. What made you interested in becoming an advocate in the first place?
Well, I'll start. I was new to the area, and in my previous life, I was a home care support worker, and I also had run my own daycare. And I was interested in doing some volunteer work that I could use those skills with, and coincidentally saw an advertisement in the paper from Julie about finding out a bit more about CASA. And once I attended that find out session, I was very interested in becoming a CASA advocate and helping a child in the community.
So can you hear me? Am I good?
Definitely,
Okay.
You're good.
Okay. My father was a CASA advocate in Sauk County. So I was just, I knew about the program. I was like, why does Manitowoc not have anything? And then all of a sudden, one day in the paper, there was an ad. And I'm like, I'm doing it. And I've been here ever since. But I just wanted every child to be able to have a wonderful childhood like I had. And I know that's like what they call a pipe dream, but if I can make one kid have that's great. 100 would be better, but we'll start with 1.
You can't get to 100 without starting with one, right?
Well, this is true.
Not to be the practical guy, but
Okay, I'll go next. So I've been aware of CASA, I think, since Julie got on board, because I knew Julie for quite a number of years now, and spoke to Julie, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I can't remember, at sort of a volunteer fair. And at the time I was still teaching. So I sort of tucked it away and like as a thought of something I would do someday when I retired. So when I retired from teaching, I wanted to do some volunteering. I wanted to do something that still, brought me in contact with kids. And then along came the pandemic. And then I found out there was virtual training and I could do it from my own home last year in the fall. So I got trained and so that's what got me started. And I just wanted to keep doing something to give back and help children. So.
Okay, I'll jump in now. So I think I first heard about it through Darian. I just saw it on Facebook and I was interested because it seemed like there was a great need for it. So I contacted Darian and it kind of went from there. But in general, I've always wanted to help make a difference in the community and I thought this was a great way to do it. I'm sorry if you can hear my nieces in the background. They're being crazy. But I just wanted to help kids who need the support, be that safe person, and be an advocate for them that, many of them really need. And every person, every kid deserves to have the chance to succeed. And I wanted to help. And also, I just have always wanted to be a foster parent. And I kind of thought this could be the first step to figure out how that all works.
So this and of course, Darian and Julie, feel free to jump in at any time too, because you're also on the panel for any of these questions that you want to jump in on. But my next question kind of leads right from that one. How long have you been a CASA advocate? And from what I understand, Natasha, since you were the last, you're kind of like the new kid on the block, sort of, if I may reference a boy band name, but how long have you been involved, and also how many children have you served during your time with CASA, everyone?
Okay, I'll go. So I'm the second newest after Natasha. So like I said, I got trained a year ago in the fall, and then things don't always move super fast, like with the courts and, things related to that. So it took a little while to get going, but I have been meeting with my child, my first case, since March. So I've just been doing this for about 6 months, actually meeting with my person. So I'm on my first case and my first child.
Okay, well, I'll go next. I was sworn in April of 2015, and I received my first case in August. This is not necessarily a goal, but I'm still on the same case. So I think Julie probably have the stats, but I think in this county, that's the longest single case as yet. We hope that very soon I can put it to bed. But I've been on since the very beginning. So I've just had my one child.
So I have been on since 2006. I am on my 10th case, and I have served 13 children.
Incredible.
Yeah, can we just celebrate that for a second?
Yeah.
Lisa has, I really think the fact that, I think that says something, Lisa, and thank you so much for doing that for the kids and the families, right? So it's so important. And I think, Lisa, one thing we haven't talked about, and we'll get to this, is that when the child finds permanency, so whether that be through reunification, which is what we advocate for. So if the child can go home and be safe, then of course we want that child home with mom and dad because that's where they need to be. But if not, then we do advocate for termination of parental rights so that the child can be adopted or guardianship. So we want the child to achieve permanency. And when that happens, our role of CASA is done. So our role ends when the jurisdiction of the court ends. So when CHIPS case ends, and then we're done. So I think that Lisa, when she says that she has served that many kids and she's been with the program for that long, a case will end when a child achieves permanency. Lisa takes a break, because usually she'll say, okay, Julie, let me have a break before you reassign me. But before I can call her and say, please come back, she's calling me already and saying, okay, I'm ready. And so I just wanted to say thank you for that. And our community thanks you, because it's huge, Lisa. So thanks.
You're welcome.
So, Natasha, how long have you been with the program, actually?
I don't even know. Darian, can you help me out?
Yeah, Natasha, you were sworn in last month.
2 months together, I couldn't remember. I'm like, I feel like it was recently.
Yeah, and just assigned to her first case, so she'll be getting going pretty soon here. Like Nancy said, there are a lot of moving pieces to a case. I mean, and it's serious, and we want to take it seriously because this is a child. So coordinating everything does take some time sometimes, but baby steps are still steps forward. And I think one of the things that I've noticed with all of the volunteers is that they are patient. So I appreciate that. And then I guess I'll speak to for me. So I am a staff at CASA, and it's not usually typical for staff to always be a direct advocate on a case, but sometimes certain things happen, and we try not to, introduce a lot of different people into the child's life. So I am on a few cases, and so they've all been within the last year that I've worked here, but I'm working with 4 children right now, some siblings.
Now, Julie, I'd imagine that, your position doesn't allow you to really take on specific cases now, but were you an advocate before you rose to this position, or was this something that you came by in a different way?
Yeah, so I did come by in a different way. So the position actually was open, and the director of Lakeshore Cap at that time had reached out to me. I'm originally from Indiana, very familiar with the CASA program in Indiana. In Indiana, every child that's under, it's not called CHIPS, but called CHINs in Indiana, every child has to have a CASA advocate. So I was very familiar with the program. I used to practice law in Indiana and then moved to Iowa. So from that standpoint, different type of perspective, I was very familiar with CASA. So, however, right now I do have 2 children that I am providing advocacy services to. So kind of the same thing that Darian said, it's not something that we would normally do, but it's 2 cases that both advocates that were assigned were not able to continue forward because of things going on in their personal lives. So instead of introducing a new person, both of them already knew me. So then I took on that role of advocate for them.
Okay, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have assumed.
Yeah,
I imagine everything is very hands-on, with the organization. It's not like you're ever removed from the situation.
No, and we really do. I think in everything we do, we ask what is in the best interest of the child. So, and the kiddos that I'm on and the kiddos that Darian has been assigned to, it made sense for us to be the ones to take on those cases. So,
definitely. So, what is the training process like? And specifically, what would you like people that are watching along to know about the initial training that you receive?
Darian, I'm going to let you.
Open to everybody.
Yeah, Darian, I'm going to let you start, if that's okay. And then I really would like to hear the perspectives of the advocates when they went through the training.
Yeah. So so the initial, when I came on as staff, I'm going to back up a little bit before I start spitting out words at you. I there's a lot of training involved, and I'm very grateful for it. I felt that it has made it a lot easier to do my job. But new staff, one of the first trainings that I took, or the first training, was the advocate volunteer pre-service training. I actually took it with a different county, with Dane County, and then kind of simultaneously during that did it with Nancy's training group, actually. So it was nice. I was kind of getting the same training at once, which for me, I guess, was a good learning experience. But it's interesting. I do have an educational background in psychology, women's gender and sexuality studies, and it was interesting to see. There's an activity, I guess, that really stuck out to me at one point during the training, talking about the whole brain child, and the child as a whole, and all the different parts of a child's life that could impact them. And there were a lot of things that reinforced things that I have already learned, and a lot of things that still really opened my eyes to what the reality possibly of these kids would be. And so when I came on, it was during the pandemic. And because of that, the training was virtual, what National CASA calls flex training. So then we met, our training is a total of 30 hours, that pre-service training, like I had said prior during the PowerPoint. And it was 15 hours. We would meet over a 5-week span, 3 hours each week. And there is also 15 hours essentially on your own, kind of homework essentially. But we have a platform that is used and has all the materials on it. So I felt that once I got the platform down, it was easy to navigate. You had access to all of the documents. So I thought that was really great. And I mean, I'm someone that I would say firmly believes that in-person trainings are usually the best option, but I think that the pandemic has showed us that we can't be slowed down if we can't do it in person. So I was grateful for that, grateful that even when we weren't in group training, that I could go on to the platform, which is called a Moodle room, and see those and be able to engage in discussion on that platform with other trainees as well. So I thought the training was really, really well, but I had good trainers.
Somebody who received my training 6 years ago, I have to really think hard going back. I think what I'm left with remembering is how much I appreciated having representatives from the community come and speak. So we had representatives from the courts, we had other advocates that came in and spoke about their experience, a representative from drug court, the social Department of Social Service, the social workers came in, and somebody from the police department. Off the top of my head, that's who I can remember, and that was eye-opening about what they have to deal with in the community. So what we would be experiencing with our kiddos. The workbook was concise. I loved the classroom work. Some really good films that was food for thought, and really easy. One night a week. Wasn't very taxing on my personal life, but very informative material.
Should I go next?
Well, you don't have to ask. You can just jump in.
I was just waiting. So going back to what Darian was saying, so when we did our training last fall, I believe we were the first in Wisconsin to do virtual training. So we were like the guinea pigs. And even though I had done online teaching at the end of my career in spring of 2020, I'm not very techie, and it was easy. It really was. So, if don't be, if anybody's watching, don't be afraid, like think, oh, I can't do this. I'm not a computer person. It was real simple. And again, Julie and Darian were kind of figuring it out as they went along. So we were all just sort of laughing and, you know, figuring things out. And sometimes things went wrong and we just kept going. So, but yeah, actually my biggest memory of the training was when Jen, who just spoke, she came on as our as an advocate, you know, to talk about her experiences. And when she talked about how she had been with the same child through all the years, it was, you know, 5-6 years that you had been with that child, and how that child had recently introduced Jen as their best friend, as she was that child's best friend, because she was the one that always was there. She always had been there. And even though the child had moved from place to place and had been in and out of different homes and probably had different social workers, but Jen was always there. Jen kept showing up. And I thought, oh, I can do that. I can keep showing up. So I thought that really stood out to me. So yeah, but overall, really, like Jen said, it went very fast. We did ours in the afternoon. It depends on when people are available. But I look forward to Thursday afternoons because that was the training. Of course, I also was stuck in the house because of a pandemic, and I was like, "Ooh, something to do," but it was great. And then the homework was, you know, it didn't seem like a big overload or anything. It was very doable. So.
Okay.
And I'm just going to bow out of this conversation because it was 15 years ago and everything was done from a binder that was like 10 inches thick and no computers. So these ladies can take it.
Okay, I can go next then. So mine was over Zoom and with Moodle as well. It was recently. And I, you know, like Darian had mentioned, it's not the same as in person, but I still think it was great. I learned a lot, but also reinforced some stuff that I already knew. And it was really great for like working with whenever you're available and do in the comfort of your own home. So that was nice. So I didn't have to like dress up or anything. Just wear pajamas and relax and just kind of learn all these cool things. And there's a great support system. Darian and Julie are awesome. The other people in the program who I went through with are great, and we still kind of connect a little bit. Trying to think what else. Like Nancy, I'm going to echo when Jen came to talk to us, well, over Zoom. I really appreciate that. It was great to hear from someone who has been doing it for a while and just know that you can actually make a difference. And you just have to be committed and take the time, and it's not hard.
Tim, I was just going to add, if I can, that and again, you know, this is part of the National CASA standard. Or pre-service training is a curriculum offered through National CASA, but Children's Code 48 in Wisconsin actually outlines the topics that our advocates need to be trained in. So although it's a national curriculum, it is, you know, by statute of the areas that we need to cover. So, and I always say, you know, sometimes my advocates will tease me that I come across as a proud parent when I talk about them, and I think I do, because again, they're volunteers that are giving their time, and I really feel like once they get through that pre-service training, also in addition to that, there's 12 hours of continuing education every year that they do. They really are well versed, and we talk about things such as trauma and adversity for children and protective factors, strengthening our families, communication, court report writing. So lots of different topics are covered during that training. So they come from all walks of life. I think sometimes prospective advocates think that they need to be from the social services area, and that is not true at all. Really, I think that we give them the tools through the curriculum, and with Darian being an awesome trainer, that we really give them the tools to be successful in this volunteer role.
I think that's something to really, keep in mind, like the one-to-one literacy program at the library, people often get the opinion that you have to be a teacher to enter into it, and it's not true at all. You provide the training, and it sounds like your training is super thorough, which is great. It gets them ready even though they don't have the background experience. So fantastic. Thank you for jumping in. I'm just going to move on to the next question, which leads right out of this. So once you're done with your training, what is your average monthly time commitment like? I'm sure it varies. So
I think there's a standard as well. We visit for 1 hour with our kiddos, 1 hour a week. And there are also the reports that we submit once a month. Now, those reports take, I guess if I average it out, maybe 3 hours a month. You can take your volunteerings a little bit further. For example, I have some travel time. My kiddo's in a program out of town, so it's an hour and a half drive. And I've now reduced that to twice a month. So there's that, and while I'm visiting him, because the travel time is so long, I actually visit for 2 hours. And then the other weeks are just Zoom phone calls that last 15 minutes, half an hour, depending on how long he wants to stay engaged. So it's not a lot of time. It's a lot of love and a lot of effort and a lot of interest, but it doesn't swallow up a lot of time.
Is there a lot of prep time that goes into it?
That's really personal how you do it. I take notes as I go, so then I just compile them at the time that I'm writing the report. So that comes together pretty quickly.
So I'll go. So I think when Darian was talking earlier, she said sometimes the visits are every other week instead of every, depending on the circumstances. Like Jen was just saying, she has to drive. In my case, it's the foster home where my child is. The foster mother is working 2 different jobs, is super busy, and isn't always available for every week. So we've settled into every other week, and that's going fine. It's a very settled. How do I say that? The child, things are just very settled right now. I mean, there's not a lot of change going on, and so there isn't a lot happening in the child's life. So every other week is going really well. Last year, I didn't do any school visits because of COVID, but now this year, I have also been seeing my child at school too. And so kind of a combination of going to the home and then also going to school. The court report, I remember when I first came in and talked to Julie and Darian, and they were like, oh, don't get turned off. Some people are afraid because they have to do a court report. It's kind of a fill in the blank, like a template thing. And when I got time to do the first one, it had been a while since my training. And I looked at it and I thought, I don't know how to do any of this. I don't remember anything. So I just went down to the CASA office and sat with Darian, and she was like, oh, this is where you talk about this and this. And then it was not a problem. And it's like I said, a template, and it doesn't take it, it depends on how much there is to write. Right now there isn't a lot going on in my child's life. Nothing, everything's kind of steady from 1 month to the next. So then it doesn't take a whole lot of time at all. So if I'm only meeting for during the summer, I just met every other week. So that was 2 hours, and then maybe another hour to do the court report, and maybe an hour to do a training or something like that. So it could be, 4 hours, maybe up to 8 hours in a month, but again, not a ton of time. So.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy, for bringing that up too, because if your child is involved in some outside programs like the CCS teams, that might be another. I think we used to meet once a month. My child was involved in several outside programs, and we would meet to discuss his case and how best to support the child. So at that time, I may have added an extra 2 hours on to the month. As I said, I think max 10 hours a month could be the max anybody could really spend.
Right. Sounds good.
Lisa, how about you?
Yeah, it's just, it's a case by case basis. I've spent, 15 to 20 hours on a case, but, that's with 2 kids and going to 2 different schools and, talking to teachers, and it just depends on the case. But Jen's right. If you put 10 hours in a month, that's going to be probably the max on an average case. So,
Natasha, can you speak to it at all since you just got started? I mean, I'm not trying to, ask a loaded question, but we found out tonight you just have really just gotten your first assignment.
Yeah, not really, but I just think it's important to like reiterate what the rest have been saying. Like it just seems like it's going to depend on the case and just kind of see what's best for your kiddo.
Now, I'm actually going to combine two questions that I received that sort of they go together. So I'll pop both of them up. I wish I could put them both on the screen at the same time. Unfortunately, I can't. But you've talked about this a little bit. But how has the pandemic affected and made you adjust to your visits? And with that, in the same breath, it goes with the other question, which is, how would you describe a typical hangout with your CASA child or children? Now, I at this point, I guess we're moving out of one phase of the pandemic and into another, and then who knows how many times we'll go back and forth. But with the whole stew of the pandemic, how does this affect your visit, and what is a typical visit pandemic and a typical visit non-pandemic like?
Well, I think also, again, that's kind of, in my case, it's case by case. My child's in an out-of-town program. So pandemic has affected that. So there's some heavy screening before my visits, mask wearing, all the proper PPE. Also, we've increased our Zoom time. And I think I would have probably gone the route Zoom time even if he wasn't out-of-town visit. But I think we visit Zoom more. A favorite CASA hangout. CASA is under an obligation to be visible at all times. So, and we don't drive our kids. We don't take our kids elsewhere. So it's in the home where he resides, he or she resides. So things we like to do, it depends on what the child's interests are. I think it's best to bring your skills to the table and your interests to the table and see what the child is most interested in and then help that to grow. So we hang out and read books on rocks and crystals and gems. We love to draw. My child particularly likes superhero movies and has kind of a strong focus on pow pow bam boom. And so we have a little rule. None of that happens on my phone. So if he likes Spider-Man, we look up information about spiders. So it's just finding out what the interest of the child is. And as I said, the pandemic has affected us by making sure that we're safe. Child and I are both masked, and the screening program with whatever facility or home environment the child's involved in.
I'll add, we have, I've for the most part left it up to the advocates' comfortability. I mean, at one point we were saying, yes, wear the mask, and we still recommend it now. Some of the families will tell our advocates that they don't mind or that they're vaccinated and they don't mind. So when it was mandated, we did. And now we're kind of being very cautious still. We're doing a lot. I know a lot of outside visits are happening, and speaking to the kids that I work with, I'll say a typical, I have a lot of teenagers, and that honestly looks a lot like talking. Trying to get them to, if I show up with like a craft or something like that, they're really not into it. They like to talk about how their day at school went. And I do drawing. Drawing is one that we'll do, or I've done logic puzzles and Mad Libs. But I also have a 3-year-old, and we play outside the whole time. The younger kids, they've really been open to doing that outside, which has been really helpful during the pandemic. I've only worked during the pandemic, so I can't really say how that would be different otherwise. So obviously, besides the safety precautions of masking and social distancing, but we I know I've had people, parents who they really don't want us to wear our masks, but we still promote just up to comfortability. I do have one kiddo that I've only met with her in person a few times. We do most of our visits via Zoom. But I'm not sure if that would be the same just because of the pandemic. She's just in a farther away location, which is something a lot of the kids that we have on our caseload that they're experiencing. So it's great to be able to utilize Zoom. And I think that the pandemic has helped us realize that.
I think one of the things I've done with my kiddo because of the Zoom calls, you can imagine how boring that might be for a 9-year-old child to meet with me over Zoom. And so one of my in-person visits, I took up a bag that I call the busy bag. And in it, it's just some things that interest the child. There's some books, there's calm toys, some spinner toys, some coloring books, some silly putty, pipe cleaners. And he keeps it in the office of where we Zoom. And now we've got something to do. So he's not having to just stare at me and feel like he's being grilled when we have a little visit or that there's too much dead air. We both get out our little busy bags and pull stuff out of it and have fun. So always be thinking of what serves the child best. And I think the busy bag is a good thing to try and invent for Zoom calls. It really works well.
I can see that. My child too is super active and really doesn't like to talk, like just sit and talk. You have to be doing something the whole time. So we've done a lot of outdoors. Started in the early spring, it was still cold and we wore masks. And then haven't been wearing masks during the summer, but mainly playing in the backyard. I haven't thrown a football or kicked a soccer ball around for a few years, I guess, since my son was younger. But boy, I've been doing it lately. So I get extra steps, which is great. And then now at school, the 2 times I visited at school, we've gone down to the library and done some reading together, kind of more school things. During the summer, he was at a summer break program, and I would meet there. And sometimes we went to the library and read, and sometimes we went outside and played. And yeah, again, just following the child's lead. They'll let you know what they want to do and what they don't want to do. I bought a couple little games that I knew my kids liked when I was still teaching, and I bring those along sometimes. And those are kind of our little special games that we like to play. So just whatever, whatever they follow their lead, and they'll let you know. Coloring too. We do some coloring. Yeah. So depends on the season, I guess.
So I was just going to add, we do have a CASA closet. So when Nancy said that about games, we do have a CASA closet that the advocates can come and look through that. It's things that have been donated from members of the community. So they can come and pick something out to take with them on a visit. We do not leave the items there. So the advocate would go play with the kiddo with that item and then bring it back to the CASA closet. We also occasionally will give the kids gifts through the CASA closet, like for birthdays or for a holiday. But for the most part, it's just items that they can take with them to engage with the kids. And honestly, I think that, what we do in CASA visits really depends even on the age. I mean, I don't know if we've said this or not, but we provide advocacy services to newborns all the way to the age of 18 or 19 if they're still in high school when they age out of the system. So clearly, advocacy services for a newborn versus a 5-year-old versus a 15-year-old, your visits are going to look very different depending on the age of the child. And really letting that kiddo take the lead. So when Nancy said about throwing a football, Darian and I actually are advocates for 2 brothers. And so we go at the same time for them so that, we're not taking extra time away from the foster family. So we try to do our visits together. And Darian and I play a lot of touch football and capture the flag and basketball. And so I think we're getting a little bit more used to it now, but there for a while, the next day, Darian would text me and say, I'm really sore. And I'm like, yeah, me too. But we've gotten a little bit better. Darian actually one hot summer day had a balloon fight. So it really is letting the kiddos take the lead and, what they're interested in and what we're able to do. We just jump right in and do that. Because again, it's about forming the relationship with the kiddos in order to be able to amplify their voice in the court system, you got to form the relationship and get to know them. And so that's engaging with whatever they want to engage in. So we've had advocates that had never picked up I'm going to date myself because I don't even know it's called PlayStation anymore, is it? So whatever the gaming device is these days. But we've had advocates that have picked up the gaming devices and have done gaming with kids. They have done coloring. They have done homework. So, if we have advocates, especially our teacher advocates, well, they're great and kind of doing some of the homework with some of the kids or the reading. So it's not all fun and games. They also try to help navigate them or helping them with a life skill as well. So especially for some of our older kids, they do some of those things too. So just really depends on the age of the kiddo.
Are the two brothers close in age?
Yes. Uh-huh.
So who would do you play 2-on-2 when you're playing football?
Well, so when we first started, one of the boys would be on my side and one would be on the other with Darian. But now we've kind of learned that we let them be on the team together and Darian and I to be on a team together. And needless to say, they win every single time.
So you're not having a great season now that you two have formed a team? We're
not, but I'm just so happy that neither one of us are on the injury list at this point.
That is very good. Yeah, it would hate to, if you were, it would be horrible to have to bring someone in to draft someone new. But it sounds fun. I mean, honestly, it sounds like that you found an interest that they really enjoy, and they just enjoy engaging in the game with you. Everything I'm hearing, and I honestly am listening, even though I'm not in the picture at all. Is that the closer you pay attention, without being, necessarily just hovering or anything, but you pay attention to what your children enjoy and their interests, and you plan things around that, it sounds like you're going to have successful visits. I mean, that's what it seems like I'm hearing. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And I think the other piece, I have 4 adult children now, and I mean they're all young adults. But if your listeners, have children, nieces, nephews, if you sit down with a child, 8, 18, 17, and say, hey, tell me about your day, or, what's going on in your life. It's kind of hard sometimes, right? I mean, sometimes they'll tell you everything in 2 seconds flat, but other times it's almost like really pulling teeth to get them to talk. If you get them engaged in an activity that they enjoy, get them engaged, and all of a sudden you'll find that they start talking. So because again, it's about forming their relationship. And, we don't want them ever to say, oh gosh, Jen's coming again, or Nancy's coming again this week. We want them to be excited about the visits. So it helps to do what they're interested in.
Great. I'm going to move on to another question, just a different question, which, once again ties in without getting terribly specific. What's your experience been like, or your experiences as an advocate? I know that might sound like a bit repetitious, but what has it been like? If I just from the outside looking in, it seems very positive.
So I think most of us that have had a couple cases, I think we would say it's rewarding. A lot of times you get so much from the children themselves. Like, they're just so resilient. You see the trauma they go through, and they're very resilient. And, maybe some of us adults need to be that way also. But for me, the moment still after 15 years is when one of my CASA kiddos got adopted, and I was invited to witness the adoption at court. And it was just, there's just no words to describe it. That's how wonderful it was. the whole family was happy. There was, there were several other kids in the family, and they adopted this little girl who had a medical condition, and they all loved her unconditionally, and she loved them back. And it was just a great moment. And that just sticks with me.
If I can just build on that, our goal is to see the children in a safe, a permanent environment, if that's reunification with their family or adopted out or under guardianship. So I think something that after my child was preschool when we met, and one thing has been certain, despite the parents having difficulties, was a lot of love for that child. And to be able to be an advocate that sees that and be able to reinforce that with the child, and to be able to watch the family start to heal and reunification becoming close on the horizon, and that it's positive. Well, I have to admit, sometimes it makes me just a little teary. It's just a fabulous thing to see that kind of success. And occasionally being able to look back and think, CASA had a part in that, is pretty awesome. The other thing I find amazing is all the other things in the community that support CASA and support these children. The drug court, the fantastic judges that support CASA. It just is a wonderful sense of community coming behind, and not just one situation, but all the children that are on our cases. And you multiply what you see in your one case by how many kids are being served, and it's just fantastic.
Nancy, even though you're newish to the game, do you have anything that you'd care to share?
So yeah, I was just thinking, I've only been on the case for about 6 months, but so far it's been very positive, definitely rewarding. I look forward to going to meet with my child. It's like, oh, yay, we got another appointment. And I always come home pumped up. So just, again, I mean, I like kids. My child is 8, and that's the same age as the third graders that I taught all those years. So it's a really good match. But I think no matter who you're matched with, you would just feel like you were doing something positive and rewarding. So, I haven't been through a whole lot yet. I don't know where things are going. It's just kind of, early days, but definitely a very rewarding feeling. And so far, it's been a very positive experience.
I know that my experience is a little unique because I am also a staff. But even as advocate coordinator, I recently ran into, there's a sibling group, 2 brothers, very close in age, not the ones that Julie and I are with, but with a different advocate that I am supervising. And they saw me and they said hi, immediately asked me where their CASA was, asked where she was. And I said, well, she's not here with me at the store. But it was really exciting because I asked how things like, well, how was your last visit with her? And they just got so excited, and to see their faces light up and be so excited about their CASA. For me so far, even within the cases that I'm the direct advocate for, seeing that excitement about their CASA, watching the advocates spend time with them and being able to see that they have been building rapport with them, I think has just been really great. And something I hear a lot is, I think, and Lisa kind of touched on it earlier. I know that she said, if I can even change the life of one. And I think that people can get discouraged because these kids are going through a lot, and trauma can cause children to act in ways that maybe on the outside don't make sense, and you don't understand why they're acting a certain way. But I had an experience with one of the kids that I'm advocating for, and she would not open up to me. And it had been a few months, and I didn't feel much progress had been made from when I got on the case. And just one day, randomly, we were talking, and in the middle of a just random conversation, honestly, I think it was about school or something that happened at school, she just went right into dialogue about something that was bothering her about this and that. And she told me that, that she felt like she could trust me. So that was really rewarding. And because I was getting to a point where I was like, what can I do to help this child? And then it was like, she read my mind and told me that I was doing fine. But it is just so rewarding. Honestly, my favorite parts of my week are when I get to go visit with the kids. So.
Julie, is there anything that you wanted to add to the mix?
No, I think that the panel did a really good job of describing that. Other than I think too is sometimes working with the families, right? So we talk to mom and dad and foster parents and social workers and all the collaterals on the case. And again, we're providing the service to the kiddo, but we also, our goal is reunification. So we also will recommend to the court in our written reports services for the family, for mom and dad, that we think may be helpful and can help towards reunification. So I think to be part of a team working with wraparound services with the family is extremely rewarding. And sometimes we don't always know. We are on the case until permanency is achieved. But we don't always know what happens 5 years from now, right? Or 10 years from now. But we know that CASA advocates may not be able to see the difference that they're making while they're assigned on the case, but we know that they're planting the seed. And we know that with adversity, the only thing that can trump adversity is resilience. And the way that resilience is grown and is achieved is by relationship building. So, I know that our advocates could probably tell story after story of the positive experiences that they've had, but not always is it positive. So, I want to be honest and upfront with that. Our cases can become very, very difficult. We don't always see the difference that we're making, but we know that we're planting the seed. So, so just wanted to add that. And I'm very thankful for our families that work so well with us. So they're going through some tough stuff. So if we can provide some more information about a child, making sure that they're safe, and providing those recommendations to the court, I hope that our parents also are finding it very helpful.
So I'm going to open up these last two questions to everybody, and I really would like to hear from everybody. And I'm not going to tell any, say who should start, but first one of the last two questions. In your opinion, what sets CASA apart from other volunteer experiences? Anyone at all?
Okay, so I think dealing with the child one-on-one, like I am part of another group that deals with foster children, but we deal more with the family, not the individual child. So I think that is what sets us apart as far as, yes, we're trying to help reunify this child with their parents, but we are dealing with that child and, trying to do what's best for that child. Whereas I think all the other organizations are more, dealing with the family as a whole.
Right. I think I could add to that by saying with CASA, we are focused on that child and following that child through the case. It's not like we'll work for 6 months with that child and move on to a different child. I've worked with other organizations where your cases move around for whatever reasons. And in this case, which is one reason why I've been with this particular case for the whole 6 years that he's been under CHIPS, is I have to be honest, there were a couple of times I thought, I'm tired. I don't know if I'm making a difference. Am I doing the right thing here? And then I'll have a a visit with my kiddo, and I go, yes, I'm exactly where I need to be. And I am making a difference in planting that seed. And this is the best interest for this child, is for me to keep on going. If he can keep on going and hope for reunification, I can keep going being his buddy, coming once a week.
So I agree with what Lisa and Jen have said, but I think another thing that sets it apart is the training, the more extensive training. I think to me, it seemed like, I don't know, a more substantial volunteer experience, if that makes sense, than just, signing up to, I don't know, help out here or there, even to do something else where I'm volunteering with kids. This seemed like it was more important. I mean, it is this, like a judge assigns you to the case, you have this training, you're sworn in. I don't know if that makes sense, but to me, it was like, okay, I'm doing something really important. This is an important thing. And so I'm being trained for it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I would just agree with everything that was already said and just say that, it is a volunteer position, but a lot is expected, and you are trained, very extensively, and you have all these resources and a support system to help you. But it is a big commitment, and you're trying to make a difference in a child's life or sibling's life, and it's just, you're in it. You're not like just on the outside making these decisions. You're working with that kid or kiddos to try to get them through this really hard time in their life. So yeah.
Yeah, I think, our advocates are, they're privy to a lot of information about that child. And by statute, they can talk to anyone that has information about that child that's pertinent to the case. So not only are they entitled to that and privy to that, but then they get to take that information and give it to the decision maker, the judge of the case. So truly be able to make a difference and to have an impact. Our CASA advocates go to the court hearings. So typically these cases are coming in front of the judge every 6 months. And, not only are they submitting their court reports, but they're also attending court. And the judges will ask, I have the CASA report, the CASA advocate or the CASA staff is in the courtroom. Is there any additional information that you want to give? So it really is truly being able to make an impact and to influence the decisions that are being made for that child's life. I often say that, when our child, and whatever system it may be, so the court system or school systems or whatever system a child may be involved in, I think sometimes we're asking the child to make the biggest, the decisions that we're making affect the child the most, right? And oftentimes, though, we're not asking the child how they feel about that. And we really want to make sure that if the child's at the table, that the child is at the table, their voice is being heard, and we're helping that child's voice be heard.
Yeah, I think everyone hit it right on the head. One thing I think I would add is there's obviously structure to the role, but something that I really like, and I've volunteered for a billion things, and I think it's the flexibility within the role. Because yes, like we're expected to meet with them once a week, but like we all kind of mentioned before, we're doing fun things. I think that is something that has stuck with me through my experiences, because and that, I mean, those are the things, like Julie said, that allow you to build a relationship with that child. So I think the flexibility within the role is something that sets it apart. And then the relationship building and the commitment. So yeah, I think everyone really hit it right on the head.
And then my final question is for everyone again. Is there anything you would like to share with anyone thinking of becoming a CASA advocate?
I think if you're thinking of becoming an advocate, come in and talk about it with Darian or Julie. come into a training session or come to more information sharing. And I think you'll be better prepared to make an answer that's right for you. But if you're just thinking about it, find out more. I think it's a fabulous experience. And as we've established, it's a commitment, but it's not taxing. And you may find that you'll want to give even more.
I also think too that, I'll be very honest, an advocate position isn't for everyone, but there's other things you can do. Help us with a fundraiser, be on the board. Just come down and check us out, talk to Julie and Darian, and maybe there's, maybe the advocate is right for you. And if not, maybe we can find you some other way to help us and help that child. All those children.
I would agree with Jen and Lisa and just add that, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. My cats are over here. Now I lost it. Shoot.
While Natasha is finding it, I will say and I totally feel that, because if I was at home right now, both of my cats would be in this screen. But one thing I think that I hear a lot is that people get nervous before or about the training aspect of it, because it's 30 hours. But it really, that is the most taxing part. And once you get through that, you get to choose what happens based on your schedule and how that works with your case. So if you can commit to the 3 hours a week with group for a 5-week span and be able to do the extra 15 outside, the numbers sound bigger than the amount of time it takes. So that's what I would say to someone thinking about it.
I think I'd like to also add that I took the training, and then it came the moment where, I was going to be assigned a child. And in all honesty, I was nervous. I started second guessing, can I do this? So you have great support in Darian and Julie. And I still say that somebody who's shy or somebody who thinks they haven't done any kind of advocacy like this before, if you want to help the community, if you love kids, if you want to make a difference in your life, still investigate doing this, because Julie and Darian can help you through any of the questions that you might have about becoming an advocate.
My thoughts have come back to me now, so I'll jump back in. So I'll kind of bounce off what Jen was saying. So I'm in that phase where my training's done and I've been assigned, but I haven't actually met my kiddo or done any visits. So I'm in that phase where I'm like, oh, can I do this? But, knowing that there's this support system, I'm like, I can do this. It'll just, take some different meetings and figuring out what works for the kiddo and just for the family and all of that. And I think if you have, even a little bit of time and think that you could do this, just, like everyone said, check it out. And they've also mentioned how rewarding it is. So there's always, that great aspect, and just, do it if you can.
Yeah, I would just like to say ditto to all of that. And then one other thing that popped in my head, and then I lost my train of thought too, but luckily it came back. We must be getting like late in the Zoom here or whatever. So the first, so I got trained, and then a couple months went by, and I first was offered a case where there were multiple siblings. Darian emailed and asked about that. And I thought, ooh, I'm brand new. I don't really know what I'm doing. I think that sounds like too much. So I said, I was flattered that they thought I could handle it, but I said, no, I think that's too much. And so, there's that too. Like if something seems like maybe it's not going to work, I think it's fine to say that, like in that situation. And then sure enough, then the next thing that came along was a really good fit. So I think that's, just shows again, Julie and Darian they're super flexible, and like everybody else said, if you have any questions, they're always there to help. And So that's been great too. But yeah, I would say if you're listening and thinking about it, it probably means maybe you're the right kind of person. So definitely investigate and look into it. So.
Yeah, I guess I just want to add, it is a volunteer position, right? So we do ask for a 1-year commitment. We ask that you be 21 years of age or older to be an advocate. But, in all honesty, we really want advocates to stay on the case as long as that child is in the journey of the CHIPS proceedings. So, I don't want anybody to be scared off when Jen said that, she's been on for 5 years. So that isn't typical. But also, most of our cases do go longer than a year. So we really do want to have that consistency of the same advocate. But I think the other piece of it, when it's a slow process, and it's intentionally a slow process because we really want our advocates to be committed once they're assigned that case. So, it's the training is the 30 hours of training, but that's intentional so that, they can learn and be thinking as they're going through the process. It takes a little bit of time to get assigned that first case. It takes a little bit of time to meet the parents. We always try to have our advocates meet the parents first out of respect for mom and dad, that they know who's meeting with their child. But it all takes a little bit of time. And that's okay, because, it gives our advocates time to really think about the process and the role that they're taking on. And I think that Darian and I really encourage that authentic conversation with our advocates to say, how are you feeling? Are you feeling comfortable with this? And once they're assigned that first case, it's not like we say, oh, off you go and we'll talk to you later. We continue to communicate, supervise, monitor. Darian, as our advocate coordinator, will go with the advocates for those first couple of visits. If it's 6 months down the road and the advocate says, I still need you, we'll still be there. So, we walk that journey with them to make sure that they're comfortable at all times in all areas. So yeah, I guess, if there's someone out there, listener, that's thinking about it, then definitely reach out and we can give you more information. Of course, we're very passionate about the work that we do. But again, it's unique and it is a volunteer position. So, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But we intentionally go slow so that you can take that time to think about it.
Great.
I want to add one more thing too, because that reminded me of one of my questions. And when I met with Julie and Darian, I'm like, hey, I just retired, and what if I want to travel? And what if we want to go somewhere and we're gone for 3 weeks, and you're supposed to meet with this child every week? So again, there's flexibility. So I think they said, well, if it was longer than 2 weeks, then either Julie or Darian would maybe go meet with the child and just touch base. Yep. So don't think like you're locked in, every single week I can never go on a vacation or whatever. That was one of my concerns, because I'm like, that's the beauty of being retired, is you can go places. So.
Well, before we sign off, Darian, could you go over, let me bring you into the spotlight position. Could you go over training dates and how, if someone was interested in contributing to CASA, how they could contact people?
Yes, absolutely. So we do 2 to 3 trainings a year. It is that extensive 30 hours of training. So our next one, we are actually going to be starting up next week. However, the first week is usually just the meet and greet, so we won't be diving into any of the content, just meeting everyone that's going to be training together. And so if you are interested, your first step would be to contact us or go on our website, which is casaecw.org. On our website, you'll be able to find our application, contact information. If you have questions, you can reach out to us and we would love to chat with you. And then once the application is in, Julie and I would meet with you, do an interview, really talk to you about the role again, decide if that's what you want to do. And then, of course, we do background checks. But if you're thinking about it, we are doing a training starting next week, and then it's 5 weeks. And at the end of the 5 weeks, we do court observations, and then you're sworn in.
And the same, if anyone wants to make any sort of contribution to CASA, they would head to that website?
Correct. The website, our Facebook page as well. We have all of our contacts on there also. Or if you prefer, also our address is on the website. I know some people prefer to just send a check or drop it off even. If you want to stop by, Julie and I would love to see you. We have our own little office up here, so.
All right. Well, let me actually jump back in. Not to hog too much camera time. But the address, as you see, the URL for CASA of East Central Wisconsin is www.casaecw.org. That's at the bottom of the screen right now. And also, if you did want to drop into their office is 814 Studio 1 Washington Street in Manitowoc. Their P.O. Box number is also 721, and their phone number is 920-323-8141. Let me just repeat that one more time. CASA of East Central Wisconsin, 814 Studio 1 on Washington Street in Manitowoc, also P.O. Box 721, and their phone number is 920-323-8141. If you didn't catch that or write it down, if anyone wants to get in touch with me at the library, my email address is tgadzinski. Like that's something easy that you're going to remember that off the top of your head. It's tgadzinski@manitowoc.org, and I can put you in touch with these people. Fantastic job tonight. We don't even have time to get to the audience questions, the audience to spectator questions. I want to thank Nancy and Jen and Natasha and Lisa and Darian and Julie for this great conversation this evening. Thank you so much. They do CASA of East Central Wisconsin. They do great work for our community. They're vital to our community. Please, if you're at all interested, just pursue more information and see where that road leads you. www.casaecw.org. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I wanted to mention two things. To anyone on the panel, if someone couldn't watch us live this evening, tell them to head to the library's Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Manitowoc Library. Minutes after we end here tonight, this will be archived on our video section forever, or until Facebook goes down like it did. Then they can't watch it. But there is that. So if people couldn't watch live tonight, this is going to be on there for a good long time to direct them to hear all about your experiences. The other thing I wanted to bring up is one other program that's actually coming up that may be of interest to people that is happening at the end of October, Thursday, October 28th at 6:30 p.m. It's actually an in-person event in the Balkanski Room at Manitowoc Public Library. It's presented by Manitowoc Public Library and Healthiest Manitowoc County. Hidden in Plain Sight, Vaping Education for Parents. So another very interesting program that I didn't feel was too awkward to tie into this program this evening. But thank you everyone for participating in the panel. And thank you for following along with us. And we hope that you had a great evening. And from all of us, thank you for joining us for Changing a Child's Story this evening on the Manitowoc Public Library Facebook page. Have a great night. And once again, thank you to all our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And goodbye, everyone. Thank you for joining us.